TGIF, everybody. Let's get ready to react. Hello, Rena, Ingmar, Hugo, Kevin, how are you? So, 2 weeks in a row, shorting euro worked out okay. I'm okay. All right, so let's start with the dollar. Okay, so, or we could even start with euro. Here we go. Okay, so short last week, covered Friday, a little early this week at 22.10, covered yesterday. So I'm still viewing this as a corrective move. Hello, Mustafa, how are you? And covered, prior to NFP. Gorkum, Mustafa, everyone doing okay? So, earlier in the week, I showed moving averages on the daily that are moving up. We're down to about 2050 here. And so, I'm not declaring, you don't have to declare a dollar bottom to make money fading dollar weakness. Okay. So, this looks like this is, ABC. I don't think it's complete, but it shouldn't be much deeper than 120 in the coming days. Otherwise, we're going to have a breakdown in S&Ps and NASDAQs hanging on by a thread. So I believe that the Dixie's going to turn lower one more time. Okay. And we're going to flush to take out the January low. And, it could happen today. If we get another weak number, I think everyone's expecting about 600, 650. Also wanted to show you guys this on the correction and sell off in gold. Look at where it held. All right back to the trend line break. Shows up a little better on the 4 within a buck. So that trend line that everyone's looking at that we broke out of here, we're getting a retest of it. I would say close it back under 1855. It's going to be a warning sign for gold bulls. As long as we hold this level, it could be viewed as a correction. Um, it could be a high. There are no confirmed highs. This was pretty close to a 1, 2, 3. I missed it, but was short euro and Aussie. Aussie also very close to, I think, completing. We cleaned out a lot of stops, so was recommending sells in here. Here, took a little heat, maybe was even here. But Aussie looking for lows to come in here. I don't know if it's going to be on a Friday NFP, could be. But I'm looking for, once we get a bottom and a sense of a bottom in Aussie, I think we could go to 81, which would challenge this high, even take it out. And once we have a bottom in euro down in here, I'm looking for at least a move back over this high, this 2350, maybe 24 and a half. And if I really want to get bearish a dollar, could be looking for something all the way up here. It's going to take you up towards this 127 level, 27 and a half for, to tag this wedge line up here. And that's how we could get a blow off in the S&Ps is, if the euro rallies all the way up towards this level, 26 and a half, 27 in the coming days and weeks. I'm thinking by the end of June, we have a lot of things completed. Actually, I believe whenever the solstice kicks in, I think it's the 21st. So we have 2.5, 3 weeks for the dollar to fail one more time and the S&Ps to blow off and finally make a new high. So we want to see S&Ps hold 4160. That's a 2-week off number. In the S&Ps, it's right here, 4161. So currently 27 above it. NASDAQ is showing relative weakness like usual, but still thinking there's a chance to retest these highs and even have a 3 drive. And crypto's giving back yesterday's gains. Okay, still an ugly week. It's tried to bounce. Here's something here at 28.5. Um, it might be a 2-week reversal, but the action's not that great after this recovery, right? So maybe we're heading back down there. Okay, well, you know, Paul, that in cable, and I talked about this also earlier in the week, that this was a stop hunt here. Remember that? And all the fuel was out of here. I thought we could trade 140, but you know what? This is not looking bad. And I think we could see 144 and a half or so um, after this dollar rally terminates. And, you know, it could be today. This could be just, you know, what we had last week was an A, and this is a B, and this is a C, and maybe this is a wave 4, and we get one more flush here. And one more flush in the dollar should be bullish for everything, almost everything. Yeah. Okay, so hope everyone had a good week. Who had a good week? Give me a Y. Ball did? Nuno? Have we helped you here, guys? Gorkum? Simon? Good, buddy. Congratulations. 26 in a week, Ferdinand. You had a good month. Alexander, thank you. I'm talking about the whole team. So it's just something to consider. You could always peel off part of your profits and become a member if you're not yet. Because if you're getting helped in face, just imagine what it's like to be able to ask the team questions all day long, 5 days a week, all night long with all the other members. It's pretty much a 24-hour room. People, there's always someone in there to give you a hand. Okay, congratulations. Glad for you, Monica. Does it, Simon? Go ahead. There's a great actionable help. This is what Simon's saying. Actionable help in chat room each week pays for my subs. Been a member for years. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you know, Simon has been in our chat room for years, and he's really a you know,
good trader.
He's actually really an awesome person to have in the chat room because he, you know, he trades but he watches the market really carefully, and he's, you know, constantly talking about things that he's seeing. And, you know, I mean, I love that interaction, and we don't expect that out of everybody, but, you know, it's really nice when we have people like Simon in the chat room. So he's awesome to have there. But
the power of community.
It is. I mean, between, you know, having, you know, people like Simon, you know, traders like, you know, Simon in there, Irina, she's been a great new addition. You know, we have Amanda who really, you know, manages the chat room, and we have Craig and Raj and Nidish and Stelios and Paulie, obviously, who's in there like night and day, which is awesome. I don't know how he does it around the you know, around the clock the way he does it, but, you know, we have a really great community, and I'm not going to obviously mention everybody because next thing you know, we'll just be here for the next 10 minutes just talking about everybody in the chat room. But
would it be difficult, Blake, to accept payment for subscriptions in crypto?
I'm sure there's a way to do it.
Because Mustafa Safi is asking about that.
You know, I'm sure there's well, we use so we use authorize.net. Okay, authorize.net is the largest credit card you know, aggregator, I guess, here in the US. And so that's who we use to take payment, because then people can use, Visa and blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 and MasterCard and all that other stuff. But, that's what grandparents use. So maybe there's a way we could do crypto at some point, perhaps. So we'll definitely look into it. I need to actually look into it. It's one of those
Okay.
things that I should do.
All right. Just
But
so you know.
but hey, let's
Came
talk a little bit about this next week, or next week, here in 20 minutes. We have the jobs report today, and
It's
this
Friday,
is
Blake.
yeah, this is Friday. Thank God.
I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, just so you know, one of the things that we're going to do, with Forex Analytics is, we'll be watching the data as it's coming out via Data Flash. As you guys have known, when I had Bloomberg for all those years, I'll tell you, the data comes out here just about as quick as it does in Bloomberg. So, make sure you use the Data Flash in your Forex Analytics system. Or you can just, use the Live Squawk feed if you want as well, and get the news here. But I want to talk about a few pairs that are really setting up. Yesterday, we had obviously a very strong dollar reaction post strong ADP number. Now, the ADP and the non-farm payroll numbers have not necessarily, worked hand in hand over the last, year. There's a lot of inconsistencies, but the fact that we got such a strong ADP number, actually tilted the scale a little bit for the non-farm payroll whisper number that was, around the 650 mark, has tilted a little higher. And there's analyst expectations that go from 450,000 to 800 some thousand, and so the median's still going to be around the 650,000 mark. But I'm going to tell you this: the numbers are very important, and the data does matter today. And as I have said since January, data is going to matter from here on out, and it does matter, because the market wants to know at this point, how quickly is the Fed going to move on tapering and normalizing rates. I should put it that way. How quickly is the Fed going to move on rates? And same with all other central banks. We got in a conversation yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, Steve and I, about this or US being like Japan again, in a different, obviously we can't compare, it's not even apples to oranges, but basically with a central bank that is not able to move, even though, and right or wrong, Steve could be completely right, but that doesn't mean that currencies aren't going to move, because you got to think about this. If currencies move on interest rates, obviously, but also interest rate expectations, we could stay, the Fed could stay effectively at zero for the next 5 years, but every time there's going to be a scare that the Fed may raise rates, there would be a period of time, probably for several months, where you would see the dollar strengthen, because people would say, oh, this is it, this is when the Fed's going to do it. It's kind of like as we've been waiting for inflation for the last 8-10 years. Oh, here comes inflation, and then it never comes, and we're like, oh, same thing can happen with rates too. And I'm not, I personally believe that rates are going to go higher in the coming year or two, and I think that rates will normalize as the economy stabilizes and we and go back to quote unquote normal, if you will. I think rates have room to move higher, but maybe the economy is so weak that maybe the Fed never even gets a lift off. But again, that's neither here nor there, because we'll see in the future what's going to happen. But what is going to happen today is if the jobs report comes in a little stronger than expected, and it beats like the headline number around let's just call it 650, 700,000 jobs we create, and we bounce back, because last month was a miserable number. We bounce back. Revisions are a little bit better from last month. There's a good chance that, taper will come into the conversation with the Fed, going into this next, and what is it, the 16th? So in, a week and a half from now, a little less than 2 weeks from now, the Fed might, start talking about tapering. Whether they end up moving on rates or not is to be seen. But what that could mean is we could see the dollar really strengthen. And you know what is set up, Dale?
What, buddy?
The dollar. Because let's take a look at a couple of pairs. Okay, first of all, we have the Aussie dollar that could obviously just, retest this, neckline down here. I mean, this is easy stuff. Like this is, if the dollar really wants to move higher, great. So the Aussie drops back to 75.50. Fantastic. That's easy. But what else is brewing? I tweeted this yesterday, but this is a cable, big resistance at 42.50. This is my chart of the day. Obviously, you got a double top setting up here. You get through this support here at 140, and boy, I mean, you're going to have the cable could actually see all the way back down to 137, and then, you talk like longer term, like, could the cable actually make it to 132? I know right now you're thinking there's no friggin' way it's ever going to do that ever, but I don't know. Is it ever? Never? I don't know. Could we? I mean, technically it could be set up to do something like that, or if anything, maybe even a big range, between 137 and 142. But that high is not looking too hot right now. If you're a sterling bull, you're probably looking at that going, oh man. Then, you have, like I said, we talked about the Aussie, but how about the Canadian? Now, you look at the Canadian, you go, oh, well, there's a nice little range. Yeah, it is a nice range, right? We have a really nice range. We have a range between 120 and 120, 150. So what happens when you push out of that range? It's really quite simple math here. You pull out of that range, you go to 118.50, or you go to 123. That's a range extension. And 123, like let's imagine we broke the top side of this. And by the way, it looked pretty bearish, not yesterday, the day before yesterday. And you look at it today and go, whoa, what happened there? I mean, if it comes back to 123, remember, hold on really quick. Let's go back to a weekly chart. I thought I might be able to stretch it all the way out. 123 is a big, this is a big zone that you've seen, before. It's not, it wouldn't be uncommon to make it right back up to 123 or like all this previous support. So we have some work to do here, and we could very easily do a range extension back up and not disrupt like the downtrend. So the dollar, and then on top of that, you have to take the dollar index. The dollar index, it's holding support. I mean, how many people have been calling the death of the dollar? I mean, that doesn't mean that the dollar won't eventually break down, but we're at a lot of support here. I mean, Amanda in our chat room yesterday, she pulled out this chart and she's like, this is the wedge I'm playing. And I mean, it makes sense because you got to break out of the wedge, you come back, retest the wedge, and then, you're bouncing here. How about if we really get a clean break in the dollar index? The 38% retracement is at 91.05. The 618 is at 92. I mean, where does 91.05 and 90 or 91 and 92 in the dollar index put the euro? Well, that puts the euro somewhere around here, 119, maybe 117 and change. So, think about that as we move into today, especially if we have some strong data. Now, I'm not here to tell you we're going to have strong data, but I am here to tell you that things are set up. Also, one other thing I wanted to show you, and this is something that I was just telling the guys and gals in the chat room today, take a look at the euro yen. So here's the euro yen. We've come out of an ascending wedge. Now, granted, the euro yen is very bullish, and we are above multi-year trend lines here. Okay. So this is an extremely bullish breakout, but nothing goes straight up and nothing goes straight down. So you come out of an ascending wedge. There's a good chance right now that the euro yen could come back and retest, let's say 132, 132.50, easy, and still be very bullish. Like we could literally drop 120, 130 pips and then find some support and reassert itself down here, outside of this wedge, way above the multi-year broken trend line. But look at the divergent relative strength and look at the, we're breaking down. So this, even though this move is happening right now as you see it, it doesn't mean that by the end of the day it can't reverse itself, but it's already leading us down this road early on. So if we do have a strong piece of data, what does that really mean to the markets? Well, to the markets, it means, if the data is strong and it's good, the stock market won't, or risk on, or I keep saying the wrong thing. It's 5 a.m. for me, keep in mind. And
5:21. Come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
Should be wide awake by
when
now.
you get up at a 3 handle, it's like, the words don't always come out of your mouth the way they're supposed to be. So what I'm trying to say is the market, we think about where we're at, and I'm gonna bring in Stelios and Steve to say a few things before we have NFP. But look, stocks are pretty well elevated. It's June. It's seasonally, it's a time where you would see stocks come under a little bit of pressure. Not for any other reason, but just seasonal profit taking. And if there's even a hint of risk that the Fed may start taper talking going into in 2 weeks from now, who the fudge sickle would want to be long, stocks, knowing that the Fed might actually induce some sort of taper talk? Well, with stocks at current levels, and if you see a strong non-farm payroll today and good revisions higher from last month, people are going to go, you know what? I think I'm just going to pull it off, even if it's not until after the Fed. After the Fed, if the Fed doesn't talk about taper, I can always get back in. But look, we've had a great run. Holy cow. Since the 2021, beginning of 2021, since the beginning of the year, our fund is up approximately, we're approximately up 14% on the year, if they're just matching the S&P. I mean, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with these levels. Strong data.
Yeah, I'm going to take off my AMC calls here today.
Yeah, you might want to.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm not
watching. You know what I said to someone?
Watching AMC.
You know that being greedy and naive is a potent combination in parabolic moves. Because if you're not those two things, you know too much and you won't be there for the whole ride. So it really helps at times to be naive and think this is normal. So, I'll hold on to it for dear life or till I have 2,000%. It's not normal.
Hey,
right, buddy?
Let me address one question really quick that came in from Rio. Rio said, I have a tricky question. If the US dollar is strong, which becomes more weak, the pound or the euro? Or in short, what happens to the euro pound? In my experience, the euro pound tends to rally more during risk off situations. So in my opinion, the sterling would actually fall at a faster rate than the euro if it's a strong data piece. If we have like strong data today and the stock market actually comes under a little bit of pressure, and let's say the S&P we're looking at right here, breaks below, like this is the 50-day moving average, like we start probing down towards 4,100, I would think that the cable gets hit quicker than the euro. The euro's more of a, I don't think the euro's a currency that's really going to come under too much pressure. It might trade back down to 117, 118, but I think overall, the euro will outpace a lot of other currencies. Anyway,
look at the COVID crash last year. Obviously, it was before the Brexit agreement, so there was that element for the pound, but euro pound just spiked.
Yeah, and that's a great observation, Stel. Now, I'm sorry, I know we only have a couple minutes till the data comes out. Steve, good morning. Stelios, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up so much time.
No worries, no
morning,
worries.
But
I have one comment to make. I agree
Yep.
with your assessment regarding inflation and rates in the kind of longer term. I think for today, I think we're very much still in the same new normal mode. If we get a miss, then yields go lower, dollar goes lower, equities go higher. I don't think anything's changed with that. So, if people are looking to day trade this, I think that's probably the way to go. The question is, we're expecting 650,000 odd. I think the risk, the market probably thinks the risk is for a higher number, and I actually think the opposite. I think the risk is for a lower number. So I think anything below, 650 and lower is going to be really a disappointment. But for the market to really start getting positive and you're optimistic, I think we need to see like an 800,000 handle and more. That's my view.
So you think the risk is for a lower number, which was going to keep asset prices higher? Interesting.
Yes,
Steve,
think, yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
What's your opinion?
Steve doesn't really ever have
Mr.
opinions.
Opinionated.
Steve is the most neutral guy I've ever met. He
I've
should have
never
gone
met a
into,
person
he
in my
could be an
life.
ambassador for any country.
Absolutely.
He's that
And
Greek
the
guy
poster-
that I'm gonna. The next time I see Steve, which will probably be in Athens, or unless he comes out here for Halloween, which he's been wanting to do, but COVID kind of put anyway. The next time that I see Steve, he's gonna be like giving me his opinions. I'm gonna say another shot of Uzo, please. Anyway, Steve, go ahead.
I don't have. I truly don't have an opinion. I don't want to make a guesstimate on what the number is going to be, right?
Yeah, right.
Because I think it's it's an exercise in vain. So I don't disagree with what Stelios said. Now, having to do with what you said earlier, I don't disagree with any of the things you said. I do also believe that the market might be fooled into believing that some better data is going to force the hand of the Fed to raise rates. And while the market is under this assumption, whenever it happens and how many times it happens, yes, the initial reaction is going to be to get a dollar bid. The thing is that I believe that all these periods of time will just be producing lovely opportunities to be shorting the dollar, because the Fed will keep disappointing and will keep remaining behind the curve.
So like the way that people should probably look at this, like let's say the dollar, it was something that I just mentioned a little bit earlier, Steve, and you may not have been tuned in, is that even if the Fed ends up, like, let's just say moving forward 5 years from now, the Fed ends up never really moving away from the zero bound. Maybe rates go up a quarter basis point and then back down again. It becomes more about interest rate expectations, right? So that's why.
Correct.
Ranges.
Although, as I said, I don't disagree with you. I think the Fed might even be forced to move rather soon, but that won't matter much if whatever they do and how much they move is still extremely underwhelming in comparison to, for example, inflation. So it's not just about will they move soon, it's will they even make an attempt to be not far behind the curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, we have approximately 1 minute. So Dale, Stelios, Steve, do you guys have anything you need to say before this comes out? Because I know we have Charlie Gasparino coming in. Always excited to have Charlie in because he just tells great stories. And, I've been watching Charlie on TV for 25 years now. So
you Republican.
It's just from CNBC, all the years.
All right, yeah, okay. You're an independent. I know.
If you want my casino assumption, last time I had a feeling that the number might be worse than expected. This time I have the opposite feeling of Stelios. Actually, we usually agree. I think the number might be better, but it's it's purely intuition. I mean, nothing scientific behind it, right? Just
So
Let's
clarifying.
see, 5 seconds.
A miss.
go, we'll
I'm
find
I'm
out.
going with another miss.
Drum roll, please. 559. Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Positive revision by a little bit.
Yeah, look, so the S&P
In line.
spiked up.
Average
Aussie
hourly
just
earnings
spiked
peak.
higher.
Yeah, dollar sold off a little.
Dollar sold
Cable,
off a little,
really.
but look at the S&Ps. The
Already
dollar is coming
sold
off.
into
Average
it.
hourly earnings more than double than expected. Keep that in mind. Unemployment rate lower than expected, despite the lower than expected number.
This is a disappointment for the market, I
Yeah.
think, and this
Yes.
is gonna
Yes.
be the trend for the next few trading days, I think. But anyway, let's
By
see.
the way, Blake, did you notice Canadian employment
No, I didn't see the Canadian employment.
minus 68 versus minus 20 expected?
Wow. So maybe this might be the this might be the one that actually moves if the dollar like reasserts itself.
Yeah,
The
because
dollar
the
Canadian
Canadian
could
employment
be,
data were
yeah,
abysmal.
exactly. So this could be the one that you know, could be the mover here. So let's keep an eye on it. Thank you very much for pointing that out. I wasn't even paying attention even as we got Canadian jobs data today. We have the Aussie continues to rally. Now this is going to be really interesting, and I know you're going to take it for Charlie here, but this is going to be where we close today is going to be false breakout or no false breakout, right? That's what's going to all be here. I mean, you
Correct.
know, is that going to be a false breakdown or not? So we'll have to
Yes.
see how we respond here at the 77-cent level here on the Aussie. All right, I'm going to let you take over. Steve, Stelios, everybody, have a great weekend. And Dale, have a great weekend, but have a great interview with Charlie.
Yeah, we'll see the Forex Analytics subscribers in 45 minutes.
Yes, yeah. We'll see you guys on the morning edge, and we'll see where everything's at that point.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
guys.
Steve. Welcome
Thank you,
back,
guys.
Charlie.
You hear me, guys?
Yeah, got you, buddy. How
Can
are
you
you?
see me? I mean, I can't see you guys.
Okay, well,
You can
you
switch on
probably
your camera
see
now.
someone needs to. I think I'm going to share the screen to go over some things with Charlie. And Charlie, are you back from Miami?
I'm back.
All right.
You can start your video if you want. You can share your camera now.
I'll do it too, Charlie. Hang out.
You guys.
All right, there I am. Charlie, it's the video thing on the tab. It'll say stop video, start video.
Gotcha. I should have started it. There we
There you
go.
are, buddy. All right, so you need a vacation from your vacation?
Well, I'm back. It's fun.
All right. Yeah, well, you know what, buddy? I heard that the AMC guys were following you to Florida. You wrote that piece about the CEO of AMC while it was starting to climb.
Right.
And yeah, and the way you phrased it was I forgot the name of the CEO, but he is wooing instead of what I always learned that, you know, CEOs and IR guys don't woo, they woo people to screw people. Right? All right. Yeah. I mean, just like we do as men. Anyway, so, you know, I'm wondering, and he came out yesterday, what a story. And, you know, it should be
The whole thing is crazy. I mean,
it should be illegal to be able to make money that easily. I have to grind it out, bro.
Well, listen, I keep getting these emails. Why am I so hard on AMC, the shareholders, the CEO? I mean, let's just kind of lay this out. You can't make up a story like this. This is a money-losing company that now, because of some sort of conspiracy theory on the web, which is essentially on Reddit and on Twitter, is now that there's massive illegal naked shorting going on, which there might be some, but that it's somehow there's a cabal of hedge funds that want to put this wonderful company out of business. And because of that, average people are out there probably spending the last dime they have in their pocket to buy the stock. And
who's the guy, Charlie, that still bearish, thinking it'll only be worth 1 cent?
Yeah, Rich Greenfield. And by the way, the people that are part of this cult are so nasty and so belligerent. And this is like you don't even have to start. I mean, we're not talking about, I don't start fights with people on Twitter. I just point stuff out. I mean, I get stuff of there are pictures floating around of a gorilla, violating me. I mean, there are pictures running or floating around from these folks, and we put folks in quotes because they're disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
of
I
Rich
don't know you
Greenfield.
that well, Charlie, but if I saw something like that, I would say, no, not Charlie. He's not into bestiality. Right?
Say a
I
lot
mean,
about me, Dale, but that is one thing I'm not into.
in fact, if we ever get together, we'll go to the zoo and see if it's real.
Yeah, okay. But it's
And
really disgusting. And
it is.
and then they conflate. My wife has a business which teaches people how to tells people how to cut the cord of their cable subscription, how to find programming in a way to cut the cord. It's somehow they're conflating that, which she has a streaming service. So I'm joining up with Rich Greenfield and to help my wife's business, which is a streaming business, which obviously benefits if AMC goes out of business theoretically.
I see. Okay,
it's just so nuts. And then you got a crazy CEO. I mean, listen, I actually have a good rapport with him. I actually like Adam Aron. We know some of the same people. I mean, he's been around and he's a smart guy. But he's going out there, in a sense, engaging with some of the least sort of desirable types that own his stock. And it's interesting when a CEO offers free popcorn to shareholders. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it's just, the whole story is bizarre. I mean, listen, I don't want AMC to go out of business. I'm pretty sure there's going to be movies for forever. I'm also pretty sure that its business model is problematic, even pre-COVID. Who was going to the movies? Not a lot of people, right? I mean, the window that movies were in the theater started collapsing dramatically pre-COVID. And forget about it now. Right. The experience just isn't that much fun, and people would rather stay home. And some people would rather go to the movies. I get that, but does all that justify what's going on here? And really, the movement that's been created here of shareholders. By the way, AMC is now owned 80% by individual investors.
Wow.
It's usually the other way around.
That's an unusual number.
Oh yeah, because it's usually the other way around. It's a flip, right? Usually when you have a strong, stable company, institutions own it in large part. This is different. This is flip. So the people that could lose a lot of money here are the people least diversified, average investors. Obviously, there's some people playing this. There are hedge funds involved in this, clearly riding on the backs of what's known as the AMC apes. No doubt about that. They're playing it up and selling when they have to. But it kind of reminds me the cult around the stock of QAnon, and I'll tell you why. I grew up with guys that believe in QAnon. Okay, these are working class guys that I grew up with that stuck home during the pandemic. You can't help it, but if you have nothing going on in your life, you start getting involved in these cults. This AMC thing reminds me of some of the conversations I have with them. When my friends tell me, oh, there's a pedophile ring run by Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and Tom Hanks, I'm like, all right, prove it. And then they come up with some other excuse. Well, it's this, it's that. It's almost the same thing with this. When you engage with one of these AMC apes, the ones that aren't totally nasty, that really want a conversation, you say to them, why do you think that, this is worth the $20 billion valuation on something like this that almost went out of business a couple months ago? And they come up with all these crazy excuses. And on top of it all is the sort of QAnon-like conspiracy that a bunch of hedge funds want to put AMC out of business through naked shorting. And so it's a great
it's everywhere though, Charlie. I mean, I could give you an example. Do you know who Jack Schwager is? He wrote the book Market Wizards.
Yeah, kind of.
Anyway, he wrote a book, Unknown Market Wizards, and he said that he had one line in the book, and he said, he talks about the best traders, and he said politics aside, he didn't think that President Trump would be a good trader because he never admits he's wrong.
Yeah, interesting.
And he ended up with 1-star reviews, even though the rest of from some people, because of just that one line. And I told him, well, maybe he had 4 great years, like he has monitors on his desk and puts on a position, says, oh, we're going to have a trade war. So anyway, so it's a world that we're in, Charlie. I don't enjoy it. It's part of it. But, this is just a symptom of the times. And I know you wrote about all the legal hassles with the All-Star game. But, I actually have an idea for you to start looking into, because I think it's so critical for everything, for all of us. And it is business. And it's all these hacks. I mean, you talk about what's happening with supply chain issues. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one thing not to get a container ship out of China that used to cost a few grand, that's 10 grand, and how long it takes to unload at the ports, have physical constraints that raise prices. But when you hack a pipeline, or now our steaks are going to be more because 20% of meat production has slowed down. I think this is a story of the year and going forward, is what's happening with ransomware and other hacks that could take down our grid.
Yeah,
Then
the
there's
AMC
no business.
You're right about that. The AMC story is interesting, and it does say something about the world we live in. You can extrapolate some bigger.
Maybe it's to
issue.
distract us from some of these more serious things that are going on. I mean,
Absolutely. And I will say this: the AMC story is interesting. It's a sign of the times that stock investing becomes almost cult-like, and us against them. And people like being part of a movement. And I think there's obviously a certain part of something happening in our society where people, instead of going to church, gravitate towards stocks as their savior. That's a story. This electrical grid business with the hacks is a much bigger story, more consequential. I mean, here's what I would say: look at the infrastructure bill that Joe Biden put out there. Look, let's break it down. How much of that bill, the money going to that bill, is going to our cyber infrastructure? And I would say it's zero. And this is the big problem that we have in the United States. Everybody thinks infrastructure on a federal level is roads and bridges, and we should build all these things. First off, roads and bridges are supposed to be built by localities and states, because the people in those states use that stuff. I mean, there's something called the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which helps build infrastructure between New York and New Jersey, because the taxpayers in New York and New Jersey, we live very close to each other. Obviously, we use the same bridges. Therefore, we pay for that. You don't need some guy from Iowa shouldn't be paying for that. So that's the first thing. Infrastructure should be done on a local level, because those are the people that use it. Obviously, if there's a federal highway system to be built, we should do that. But that's not what we're talking here. The federal role comes into play, my view, when it's a national interest. And one of the infrastructure holes that we have nationally is cybersecurity. If you can just take down the country's electrical grid through a hack, you got some real problems here. And that's where the Republicans, I believe, should be pressing Joe Biden on right now. Joe Biden came out yesterday, the president came out and said, businesses should handle this. I mean, that's almost like saying businesses should be, hire their own armies to protect themselves from foreign invasion. That is businesses, yes. And businesses should play a role and, try to stop their employees from downloading stupid stuff. And, I get emails from Fox every day on that. But if it's a national interest to protect the electrical grid, to protect supply chains, that's where some money should be going. And I'm telling you, they're spending nothing on that in this infrastructure bill. It's a big, besides the wasteful stuff. And there are a lot of
social programs, multiple social programs in that infrastructure, isn't there?
Yeah, and this is what we should be spending on. I mean, people think infrastructure is a road. It's not anymore. It's the stuff that you and I are doing right now. We lived a whole year online. We conducted business. The economy improved. it got better. We survived a pandemic because of this. If this isn't totally secure, if you could take the nation down through a hack, we got some real problems, and it's a federal issue that needs to be addressed. And the Republicans, I'm surprised they haven't used this to jump on to attack the infrastructure bill, because it's so obvious that this is a national need.
In many people's eyes, even going back to 2016, that people think that you have to see missiles and bullets flying to be in a war. This is a war. Maybe this is how World War III has already started, through cyber attack.
Who knows how you could press a button? You can hack into our national defenses, and
there probably is.
Missiles flying.
I remember talking to John McAfee, who's really a kind of a character, but he thought years ago.
I've seen the documentary.
Anyway, he thought China already had the capability to shut down our infrastructure.
I don't know. I mean, listen, there's a little bit of the gang. Listen, I'm sure there's really smart people in China, but that country is a little bit of the gang that can't shoot straight. I mean, if this Wuhan lab has taught us everything, as evil and vile as they are theoretically, and how they want to control the world, they're kind of numbskulls at it as well. And I think listen, I think we should trust but verify. We don't have to be scared to death. We don't have to be scared to death of China, but we should be beefing up all our systems, because listen, the hack could come from North Korea. I mean, it could come anywhere.
Anyway, I think that's an undercovered story about business, and what a great point you make about there not being a dime for cybersecurity, because I think that's really our national security, and just being able to maintain the lifestyle, with oil and food and water. No one will care about the price of AMC if they can't get a steak to barbecue this. What are we going to do? Barbecue flat screens? So, just something to keep an eye on. So let's get to baseball and the All-Star game. Charlie, you've been writing about it and how it's turning into a legal nightmare for Major League Baseball, moving the All-Star game. Any idea how you think, is this just going to drag on through the All-Star game, that they'll be playing the game and there'll be litigation in courts happening simultaneously?
Yeah. Well, listen, I think the game was going to be politicized anyway. I mean, I'm going to put you. I've done a lot of reporting on this from the baseball standpoint, from the Rob Manfred, the commissioner's standpoint. So I have this pretty nailed down. They were being obviously in the run up to the All-Star game going in Atlanta, given everything that's gone on in the nation, and particularly the Georgia voting law. They were put on notice, meaning Major League Baseball, by various activists. Stacey Abrams, the former the gubernatorial candidate, almost became governor. She's a major voting rights activist in the state. LeBron James's group, which is again a voting right. He's got this civil rights group that he's part of. Al Sharpton, you know who he is. Yeah. They all put Major League Baseball, I'm told by baseball officials, senior baseball officials, they all put him on notice that they wanted the All-Star game to be a celebration of or a political statement against the Georgia voting law. Okay, so now Rob Manfred was sitting there saying, listen, we want to have an All-Star game. We want to celebrate the life and of the late Hank Aaron, former Braves great, one of probably the greatest hitter of all time.
Hammering Hank.
Yeah, he just died, earlier in the year. And
it wasn't from the COVID shot.
No, it wasn't from COVID. It was.
But a lot of people online said, "Well, he got a shot," and then he died.
They tried to say that about Marvin Hagler too. It's absurd. Yeah. Okay, so they wanted to stay. That's what they wanted, and to have a positive message. They saw this thing becoming a circus. Stacey Abrams actually reached out to a senior, someone who works for Manfred, and basically and said that she wanted a firm statement from Major League Baseball against the Georgia voting law. You know, baseball, that's not what they do. Okay. By the way, you know, most of the country, when they find out about this Georgia voting law, they don't think it's so onerous that you might have to show your ID. And, you know, I mean, some of this stuff is so absurd. Then Biden gets into the act. And remember, Biden called it Jim Crow on steroids. And, you know, which was maybe one of the, you know, you criticize Trump's, you know, verbal miscues. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. But anyway, if you know anything about Jim Crow, I mean, this was nuts. It wasn't even a little like Jim Crow, just so we're all, forget about Jim Crow and steroids. So baseball hightailed it out of Atlanta. They said, listen,
The only crows I know are Heckle and Jekyll.
Yeah, well, you know, listen, that's not, I don't make light of Jim Crow. I mean, it was a horrible time in our country's history, but to compare this law to it is absurd. So baseball got out of town. Where Rob Manfred, I think, erred, and in a major way, is that in doing so, he said something like, something along the lines of like, listen, this, because this law does not represent the values of baseball, so we're going here. He probably should have kept his mouth shut and said, we're just going here because it's turned into a political thing. He didn't. They know that's a mistake. They would love to have that moment back where they could say something less political. In any event, now you have a conservative group, the Job Creators Network, basically suing to bring it back. This lawsuit's going to go nowhere. Okay, in my view. I mean, I was like reading the papers. It's like it's hard to get your hands around like their legal theory, but it's a publicity stunt, and they want to highlight this. And I think conservatives are going to keep highlighting, you know, the far left movement of corporations and like, and the MLB is a business, and the Biden administration in the run up to the 2020 elections and 2020 midterms, and that's a 2022 midterms. I'm losing my years here, but and I think this is a political issue, and I think and you know, we're going to be talking about during the All-Star game all these issues. There's no doubt about that. Even if this lawsuit goes nowhere,
it's a balk, Charlie. Anyway, I just want to circle back a little bit to this ransomware because of the use of crypto as a means of payment. You know, I read that the old ransomware attacks used to be they demand a $200 to $500 debit card with your PIN. This is pre-crypto. And because of the anonymity of, certain crypto like Monero, and they're able to, have big price tags on this. Could this be an Achilles heel for the feds to, come down on crypto? And and isn't it right for, crypto exchanges, just like we do if you have a stock account or you have an FX account, that they have to know their customer. They have to track in banks $10,000 transactions or more, and that's not happening in the crypto space.
Yeah, I mean, listen, regulation is what's going to drive the price of crypto down, my view. Same with a lot of smart guys I know that are, I know a lot of big hedge fund guys. I mean, we're talking about household name hedge funds, 10 billion and up. They're obviously in crypto. It's not their whole portfolio, but they got 1% or 2% in there and playing around in it and trading it. If you talk to them, every one of them will say if they're worried about one thing, deflating Bitcoin or all these things, it's clearly regulation. Because listen, they're already saying it. I mean, if Janet Yellen couldn't be any more clear, and by the way, right now, all the Biden administration is doing is focused on infrastructure, trying to spend as much money as they can to try to buy the 2022 elections. So they're not really thinking of crypto regulation per se now. But as soon as this window is over and they either get the bill or they don't, they're gonna, and then the elections come.
They're running out of time, aren't they? I mean, by August, I think that there's not going to be much legislation done. It should be gridlock because everyone's going to be focused on 2022.
Right. So once that happens is when you're going to see, my view is Janet Yellen and Gensler, the SEC chair, and who knows who else get into crypto in a regulatory way. And I think they're clearly worried about it from a money laundering standpoint. They're worried about it. It takes power away from them. Obviously, it's an alternative currency, and they're worried that that illegal activity occurs broadly using crypto. It's a facilitator of illegal stuff. And they're kind of on strong grounds on the latter.
They are. On that one, they are.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of ground Janet Yellen is on, proposing a global corporate tax rate of 15%, not for just us, but globally. I mean, where does a Treasury Secretary? I don't think anyone, former Treasury Secretary or Fed official, has ever proposed a tax rate for other than the United States.
Sounds absurd. I can't imagine China going along with them.
No, but Europe could Europe go along with it?
Maybe that maybe based on some interlocking sort of thing where we agree to something that they want and they agree to something that we want. But it's I don't know why Ireland would do that. Ireland is a small country. It's kind of a tax haven. The economy does pretty good there because of it. Why would they want to screw up a good thing? I can't imagine Britain going on. They're not even part of the EU anymore.
Right.
What I'm saying? It's just
right.
But who knows? Could you imagine like a country that's really benefiting from the lower tax rate? Really, by the way, one of your somebody in the chat says Europe has proposed a minimum tax. This isn't U.S. driven. It is and it isn't. It's the reason why it's getting some headlines and we're talking about is because because what Janet Yellen said, not necessarily what some dude in the EU is talking about. So we'll see what happens. And here again, another one says the point is that they even the playing field. Listen, we don't want government sort of evening out the playing field. We want, that's not what government should be doing. It's, government, in my view, should be letting the private sector
represent their nation.
Yes, and let capitalism even out the playing field. Now, obviously, China plays by different rules, and everybody plays by different rules. But it's like it reminds me of the debate over climate control and global warming. If we have certain emission standards here, do we really think China and India are going to go along with them?
Right. It's kind of unrealistic. How's it going to be enforced? Yeah, they're not. So I want to wrap it with this employment number. So it wasn't as big of a disappointment as last month's, Charlie. Although the dollar weakened substantially on it. I'm curious as to, it's the strangest employment situation I've seen in my lifetime where there's a need for workers and there's so many jobs that can't be filled, and we keep getting these weak numbers in employment. And do you think that we've had a permanent change and people just aren't going to go back to work? And one thing on the inflation front, is it going to have to take higher wages to bring people back? Because the narrative about inflation being transitory because of supply chain issues, et cetera, once you start raising wages, that's not transitory because you're not going to be able to cut them again unless we have a severe downturn.
I agree. And, one of the problems and I know this just from a micro level, because I'm going to be doing some reporting today for Fox Business and Fox News as well, from a restaurant in Manhattan, and getting his the owner, Gerardo Bruno of Sistina Restaurant in Manhattan, which is one of the best Italian restaurants. It's created by the Bruno family, who came here penniless. These guys worked their rear ends off. They came as bus boys and dishwashers and you name it, and they created three of the best Italian restaurants in the city: Sistina, Caravaggio, and San Pietro, which we'll be filming from. And he'll tell you that his margins are very thin. He pays a lot in he pays a lot in rent. He's got regulations up the rear end, and the wage pressure could crush them. And I think that's that's one of the other problems. You know, you got wage pressure on businesses that can't afford it. It's one thing to have wage pressure on JP Morgan paying secretaries more. It's another
Or
thing to have,
Amazon.
or Amazon. It's a whole other thing with these
Small
businesses. And, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the looming economic problems that we have. And, you know, we're going to, there's a theory there that if they can't raise wages that much because they go out of business, well, then guess what? We're not going to have inflation. But, you know, they're going to raise it enough, I think, to attract people back to work. And then that's where the inflation kicks in, probably. And,
Yeah, because that's not transitory.
no, it's very hard. It's very hard to take it down after you raise wages.
Right.
Too,
Right. Most people would
but
leave.
you know, listen, you're supposed to have rising wages in an expanding economy as businesses compete with each
without
other.
it being legislated.
Right. See, that's the difference here. My friend Gerardo at San Pietro is not competing with the restaurant across the street for workers. He's competing with the federal government paying people to stay home. And that's a whole other ball game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, many governors have ended those programs. I think they end. Don't they end? When do they go to? The end of October?
Probably, but that's a long time, man.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, Charlie, I'm glad you finally got your trip in. When we first started talking, you said you couldn't wait to get away and enjoy yourself. And
it was great. And I just want you to know, I forgot we were supposed to be on today. I was in the gym at my local Crunch, and I look at my iPhone, and there comes your notice about I'll be coming up in 10 minutes, and I'm like,
okay.
Oh my god.
Well,
So
thanks for giving me a spot. I was trying to bench 315 for 10 reps. So, I'm glad you came in, partner. Great to see you again, Charlie.
Talk to you soon, Dale.
All right, buddy. That's
Bye-bye.
a wrap. You could follow Charlie's writings at Charlie at C Gasparino. And, I'm tweeting Charlie's stuff out there. And really, it's great to have Charlie as a regular in our rotation. Thank you, buddy. Have a great weekend.
Anytime,
all right,
Dale.
and everyone have a great weekend. Do your work. And remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. We'll see everyone on Monday. Adios.